Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our English broadcast of the Chinese LPL. LGD managed to fight back in their game against WE and even out the series at 1-1. And Imp, of course, is going to get the MVP. 8, 4, and 5. Not a massive damage share, but that guy was a highlight reel.
Yeah, he was also drawing a lot of pressure around the map from Team WE, so definitely deserving of this. But it was technically Marn's late game play on that TP flank that won them the game.
Not to mention the fact that Punish was unkillable and honestly ridiculous.
The confidence, though, and just the beauty of Imp's Bane is always fun to watch. That guy, this is so good. And then he uses his heal and his Bork to chase down Mystic. So popping the heal puts him in range for the Bork around the corner, and then hits him with a crit on a Silver Volt proc. Just deletes him.
Not even sure whether that was a crit. It was just stupid amounts of damage. That Silver Bolts when you max it first is just silly. But, man, we'll see whether Imp is going to play Vayne one more time. I have a feeling the biggest problem, though, was the fact that WE just had no answer for the Vladimir, and they decided their option there was just to not answer it. They just let Punish go, tried to stay away from him wherever they could. It did actually help them out moving out of the mid-game into the later stages. They managed to win a team fight, but it just was not enough. It was just sort of too little too late.
It's this idea that Vladimir is going to draw so much pressure early game just because of how hard he's going to win a 1v1 and what kind of response that requires from Team WE to use their resources there. That meant that they couldn't put the resources elsewhere. And yes, it was Marn and Imp that would eventually take over and win the game for LGD through their damage, but Vladimir is amplifying that. So it's not saying, yes, Vladimir was the hard carry here, but Vladimir definitely was a problem that opened up this avenue of attack for LGD to get in the position that they did.
Yeah, most certainly. And we'll see whether he's going to be able to pick up something equally as powerful here on the side of Punish, because he has impressed us so far this series, both on the Victor and on now the Vladimir. So see whether he moves into the next game feeling as good as he did in game numbers 1 and 2. But who are we now looking at? Is it still on Amy to try and hold on to this?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think LGD's strategy of making sure that they just had frank winning lane matchups and alleviating a lot of pressure from Amy to gank them and make sure that they get ahead or that they're okay was definitely helpful. I think this series also really exposed Nidalee and why she's fallen out of favor in terms of the Kindred pick. She just does not mean as much late game, whereas Kindred and Elise do.
And I feel like as well is that Nidalee needs specific comps before she's really strong as well. I mean, Kindred, you can basically put her in anything and she'll just be ridiculous. Slammer's Despite is a fantastic ultimate that's always able to be utilized, whereas Nidalee, I mean, I feel like she still has a place in those poke-type comps with things like Soraka, where you can just make her this heal bot, just sit in the back, make sure that Soraka's still healed up, can heal everybody else, throw spears in, get massive damage, poke everyone out, war of attrition type style. But in this sort of comp, where what they really needed was something like a Rek'Sai, something tanky coming out of the jungle, even something like a Gragas, I think maybe WE making a few mistakes as far as the draft. But we are back into it, and Trundle and Bard once again going to be taken away, as it is going to be Maokai removed on the side of LGD.
So removing a lot of top lane power. It's also kind of a double whammy against Zero. I don't know why WE are focusing so hard into Bard and Trundle.
Yeah, I find it a little bit strange.
I mean, you, I think, has really been exposed as a weak point for LGD.
And I feel like Bard still, you know, isn't necessarily where he's going to find any of his power. But WE, looking at their final ban, we'll see what is going to be taken away. Of course, Swain option, that is going to be it. Going to get rid of it. So, Azir, Ryze, Vladimir, Lucian, all of those picks still available.
Pick your poison, LGD. What do you give?
Exactly right. Might just be a throwaway ban here, honestly. So Lucian is actually going to be the one that is thrown out. Ryze, definitely an option. Does leave the Vladimir once again available for LGD. And a Nazir. All sorts of things.
Curious what LGD will make of their second rotation. We've seen Xie take Ryze into the mid lane, and 957 have back-to-back Lissandra games. See if they mix any of that up. I don't think we're about to see a Hecarim.
I don't think so either. Although Amy did switch his summon as well.
He's ready.
Yeah. Champing at the bit, one could say.
Amy on your screen right now. Obviously having a pretty intense discussion with Hart.
Yeah, cycling through, looking for their options here as Braum, fairly consistent consideration for the most part, as Vladimir is going to be what he switches to, and that makes a heck of a lot more sense, as that's going to be locked in. Braum as well picked up here for LGD. Now WE to work out their next round. What is going to be picked up here? Condi can grab a jungler if he wants to. Of course, Nidalee's still available, but probably not going to go towards that. Can pick away the Elise.
I was going to say, I think we might have a fight for the Elise. Graves also available and an option.
All right. Condi going back to something that did work in the previous series that they played earlier on. Mystic not going to be able to play his Lucian, which did dominatingly well in that first game.
Ooh, Zero's getting serious though, taking the Thresh. Obviously having a range advantage over Braum means that you have a superior 2v2.
Not to mention the fact that Zero was known for his Thresh play. Also known for building very interesting items on it.
We're not going to talk about it.
We're just gonna move on from that, that's fine. Okay, LGD. Now with their second round, we'll see what they are going to pick up. As Punished already has that Vladimir. What do you expect? Something like an AD carry and a jungler.
They've pretty much hid their composition, both teams on either side so far.
Yeah, not really committing anything, right?
Sivir's still available. I think that's why either team is very cautious of picking it early, just because Imp showed how potent and powerful the Vayne counter matchup is. Yeah, giving him the final pick.
Yeah, so everything going to be very open to Imp and what he wants to take into this. See what Mystic decides to do. Ezreal is, of course, his fallback. He's hovering it for the moment. And Lissandra is there as well. So, WE very similar comp to what they used in the first game. Now with a little bit more AoE available to it if they do decide to lock in the Ezreal.
I cannot believe they're tunneling so hard into this Lissandra pick.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Ezreal's locked in for Mystic. Yet another champion that Imp does like to pick the Vayne into. And that's what the comp's going to be. So, Ryze, Lissandra, as well as Condi back on the Graves. We'll see whether he can have another dominating performance on it. Of course, does just feel more comfortable on that pickup.
I just don't like Lissandra in the top lane versus the mid lane when Graves is in the game.
Yeah.
You have so much kill pressure. I don't know. We'll see. They executed well on it last time in game 1, but they actually literally brought Lissandra down from the top lane to use her strength in the mid lane with a gank.
Well, this time, of course, they still do have a fair bit of wave clear in the Vladimir and Echo as well, but looking to pick up a Sivir to augment that even further.
It's to help Vladimir, so like Ryze, Vladimir doesn't have a lot of mobility, which is why he builds that belt.
Yep, dash
but
cannon.
Sivir will work really well in tandem with him by allowing him more flanking opportunities to get his Hemoplague across 5 members.
Well, that is exactly what is going to happen, as Imp has locked away the Sivir. So Sivir Braum going to be the bottom side of the map, as Marin once again heading in on the Echo. And Amy on a champion that he's shown proficiency on so far this series in the Elise. And LGD, I have a feeling like this is a tried and true theory moving into this game. And it's have Punish be a rock that is immovable and get Amy around. Make sure he can gank some lanes, get Imp ahead potentially, get Marin ahead. We'll see whether they can make it work.
Also empowering their 5v5, in particular Imp, quite a bit again. This time around on an AoE scale as opposed to single target damage.
Yeah.
So trading away from that Vayne into a Sivir. This is again a comp made to make Imp shine.
And Imp has always been an incredibly impressive Sivir player. Has actually played Sivir as well. So it was against Vici earlier on. But LGD, now it's do or die. They really need to find a win at some point. Otherwise, you know, it's just going to be feeling pretty bad being in the LGD camp, and this is their opportunity. They have a good comp. WE going to be taking what they won with in game number 1 into it. We'll see whether that Vladimir pick is exactly what's going to be able to make it work as we hop onto the Rift. Thank you very much, Marin, and we are onto the Rift for game number 3 between WE and LGD. LGD fighting to find their first victory in the LPL for the summer split. Wanting to finish this one off with a bang, and we'll see whether they can do it. Of course, Vladimir Siva has always been a combination of champions that has worked quite well in tandem, as Froskerin had mentioned.
Venn diagram of murder. As we have quite a cheeky invade, as there's an extra person there trying to make use of Braum's level 1 power.
Yeah, lands the Winter's Bite as well. Mystic, he's an explorer though, able to get the work done. Moves out of the way. Good.
So I wanted to touch on both these compositions. Team WE, I have a feeling we're in for a long one. They have quite a bridge composition set up, so their early game is going to be entirely reliant on Condi with this Graves pick. Their mid-game power spike then comes through Lissandra and Ezreal, and then like a baton they hand it off late game to Xie and Rise, which tells me that they're looking for that late game. It's going to be probably another 45, 55-minute slugfest if they get their way.
Damn right, but look at the aggressiveness of these Keystone Masteries. Imp decides to go for the fervor of battle, as well as Marin. As both of them don't really care about, Grasp of the Undying, Warlord's Bloodlust. Nah, it's not about sustain. It's about being able to more effectively kill people.
And that's how effective LGD are in their lane phase and where they've actually found their win condition. They truly are a win lane, win game style of team right now until they can get their synergy working for them. But we will have another initiated lane swap. They performed well in it last time. Again, isolating the Vladimir matchup is the important aspect.
Well, is it going to be the same isolating it against the Rise? We now have 2 consistently banned champions being picked up in the mid lane. We'll see whether GA is going to have a better time with it this time. But honestly, I wasn't all that impressed by the Rise out of GA in game number 1. See whether he can turn it on its head this time around.
Naturally, a lot of teams prioritize Rise, however, just because he's so tanky, so much CC.
So much consistent damage. Just pretty silly. Connie, though, it's going to get joined by 957 as Yu gets a Thunderlord's proc to the face. Nice work, 957, as he wanders back towards the top side of the map. And won't really care too much about losing his health bar. Punish just continuing to shove the wave forward. This time GA, though, feeling more comfortable.
LGD used to do this a lot when they had Twin as their jungler. Obviously, it was a very different roster back then, but they had one of the best manufactured lane swaps. But they did it entirely not to isolate a mid-lane matchup based on a champion, but to hide their jungler.
Yeah.
And we saw that it worked to great effect. Obviously, it carried LGD all the way to Worlds, with Twin as their jungler, who wasn't performing very well in that split. But it could work in a very similar vein for Amy here.
That's exactly why they replaced him, was to never have to do that again, Froskerin. Amy just got to step up.
I think Twin got the last laugh.
He did. And probably is still having it. In the...
Performed well on OMG.
Yeah. He left on his own accord, if I remember.
Yep. Went on to bigger and greater things.
Or smaller and less public things. As Amy is going to take down the Gromp here towards the top side of the map. Tower going to fall first for WE on the bottom side. We'll see whether they transition into the Dragon. Looks like no is going to be the answer to that, as it is just a Cloud Drake. And Imp is going to head back to base.
So we're already starting to see some habits formed from teams. Their priority around the Dragon and how early they rotate into it depending on what it is.
Yeah.
I think the answer has been that Cloud Drake is not very important to LPL teams.
No one really cares. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. So ignored entirely.
We saw that in the Vici Gaming game where they literally didn't take a single dragon.
Yeah, I think there were 2 dragons taken that game. They were both Cloud Drakes, and then no one cared about the Elder. They were like, well, this is pointless.
You still get battle stats.
True. Imp with a nice spell shield there. 957. Unable to lock him down. Throws out the claw after getting a little bit more damage on the creeps. Like it. You can see Imp 5 CS ahead of his opponent in Mystic, but on different sides of the map. Just looking to rinse and repeat.
Should be noted, though, that initially 957 has a CS lead over Marn. However, Marn is waiting for a big buildup of Mystic's wave to crash into him. So not as distant as it might seem.
Yeah, lots
Although
of members
now
of
it
WE
is.
moving up, yeah. It's actually dying, and Marin's heading back to base. So, Mystic just going to be able to shove even more creeps into this turret. And 957 going to keep his lead.
See what they're able to do with that is now both top laners are rotating back to their duo lanes. And we're continuing to open up the side lanes. Previously, before, the twist on these lane swaps. See who's going to get the jump on that.
Of course, Xie with Pinkwood towards the upper side, meaning chilling out a little bit closer to the top side of the map. You can see just throwing down the ultimate as soon as it comes available at level 6.
LGD, though, threatened the gank on the mid lane initially with Marn, so the same type of mentality still carrying over from last game into this one.
Oh, an LGD bite the bullet. They say, well, someone's going to have to get us to the next dragon. May as well be us. Xie going to teleport back into the mid lane, and WE going to send a whole bunch of people over here. And looking to possibly threaten this dragon as well. Spidey senses were tingling. They grab the ward and they say, no one's killing Cloud Drakes. Just not doing it.